Hey guys, I'm here to review the 6th episode of the Book of the Mandalorian, the Book of Grogu, the Book of Boba Fett. With only one episode remaining, I'm left asking myself, is this season purely being used to set up things that are going to happen in Season 2? Or are they truly going to try and wrap up the Pike storyline in this final episode? And is that going to feel satisfying and earned? Onto the actual episode itself, it was great to see Timothy Olyphant as the Marshal of Mos Pelgo, Cobb Vanth, return. He was one of my favourite characters from Season 2, so it was really great to see him continue on in the Book of Boba Fett.
But out here, I'm the one who tells folks what to do. Think it through.
With the Pike's influence expanding outwards from Tatooine's central hubs, it's not surprising that it's expanding out towards Mos Pelgo and that Cobb Vanth would be wrapped up into this conflict. I really like the fact that Cobb Vanth's characterization from The Mandalorian is carried over here. He has a really unique way of speaking and he's got a sort of swagger about him, a confidence that is really, really cool. And it really shines here at the opening scenes. As we know from previous episodes though, we know that the Pikes don't take kindly to being told to stay out of a particular territory, so I feel like Cobb Vanth would have been dragged into this conflict regardless of whether Mando approached him for help. I can't believe how much Luke Skywalker we got in this episode. It was absolutely incredible to see. The technology that they've been using has come leaps and bounds since we last saw him in the Mandalorian Season 2 finale. It still had a couple of moments where it was a little rough, where his face might have been a little bit smooth or the mouth didn't really line up with the lines that were coming out. But overall, it was really, really fantastic. And some shots were absolutely indistinguishable. It's an interesting concept, deepfakes, and it's going to be interesting to see how far they lean into it. Are they going to bring the original trio back? Are we going to possibly see all three of them brought back? It's going to be really interesting to see. One area that I feel that does let it down a little bit is the vocals.
The galaxy is a dangerous place, Grogu. I will teach you to protect yourself.
We know from the Mandalorian Gallery episode that's dedicated to the finale, all of Luke's lines are completely synthesized. None of them are actually Mark Hamill speaking. They're all computer generated. And I feel like that's a little bit noticeable. They come across as a little bit flat. There's not enough inflection or tone put through them. It's all sort of very one level. And it comes across as just a little off. It doesn't line up perfectly with how we know that Mark Hamill or Luke Skywalker speaks. But it's completely forgiven. It sounds just like him. But yeah, it just needs a little bit more tweaks, a little bit more inflection on the way that he speaks specific words. One of my favourite scenes of this episode was Luke training with Grogu and lifting all the frogs out of the ponds. He initially scolds Grogu for lifting that one frog, but he sort of then reminds himself that Grogu is just this young, whatever species he is. He's essentially he is a child, and that he can't treat him like an adult, and that he needs to embrace his lighter side. And it's really great because it shows that despite all the hardships that he's faced in terms of the rebellion and losing his father, that he still does have this friendly, light-hearted side to him. It also shows that he's learning as he's going, as a teacher as well. He's never had to teach before. So this is a great learning experience for him as well. And I really, really love that we got this great extended training montage with him and Grogu, building the temple and just sort of building the foundations of what we know is to come. It was great to see Ahsoka again, and I love the debate between her and Mando in terms of whether or not he should go see and interrupt Grogu's training, and whether it was important for Mando or if it was important for Grogu. The relationship between Mando and Grogu continues to be the most in-depth relationship displayed in Star Wars in recent memory. It's one of my favourite aspects of Star Wars at the moment. It's just a great pairing, and you really feel that emotion. And when little Grogu reached out his hand towards the starfighter, it broke my heart a little bit watching Mando leave and not being able to see Grogu. We then get an extended sequence of Grogu training with Luke, and this was just a great all-round scene, learning to jump and use the Force to hop from rock to rock, reacting with the training remote. It was great to see Luke and Grogu working in tandem with their training, and having that flashback to Order 66. was really, really cool to see. Because we never really got to see much of Luke training in The Last Jedi. I know this is before them, but we only really got to see it in little bits and pieces here and there with Rey. So it's great to see it more fleshed out here in the Book of Boba Fett. Having a scene between Luke and Ahsoka is something that fans have been asking for absolute years, and so it was great to have it finally realised here, and it was realised so well. The line between Ahsoka and Luke, where she talks about him reminding her of his father, was absolutely incredible and just pitch perfect. Dave Filoni and Favreau continue to do this amazing blend of bringing all the comics, the books, the movies, the TV shows all together in a cohesive vision, and it's just an absolute treat to build. We then come back to Fett's castle, where we have a little bit of a briefing scene between the characters, but the story really doesn't go anywhere. It's sort of just rehashing what we know, that the other family is going to sort of stay out of the way. They're still chasing muscle, which is really sort of frustrating for those that are wanting that story to progress. Essentially, nothing really happens apart from the fact that they're now together on Tatooine. I know that Tem has been quoted in saying that he thinks that Boba Fett speaks too much, but not a single line over 2 episodes. Is that too much? We then get a fantastic sequence of Mando going out to Mos Pelgo or Freetown to try and recruit Cobb Vanth and the villagers to help Boba Fett in his fight against the Pikes. I'm not too crazy about using the villagers as muscle against an army of Pikes. I'm not sure how convincing that's going to be if that's the case. I agree that they put up a good fight against the Krayt Dragon back in Mandalorian Season 2, but that was out of sheer desperation. I don't think that they've got a dog in this fight. Even with Cobb Vanth being gunned down at the end of the episode, I don't think that's enough to drag the villagers into this fight, and whether they're going to be a competent force is yet to really be seen. It wouldn't be a Filoni episode though if we don't bring another fan favourite character back, and this time we get Cad Bane. Cad Bane is one of my absolute favourite characters from the Clone Wars, and I think he was done absolutely perfectly here. It was such a treat to see him come out of the mirage distance in the desert. I had a feeling that the deputy was going to die. I don't think Cobb Vanth is dead. It looks like he gets shot in the shoulder and he's being treated by the villagers at the end of that little sequence. But it's going to be really great to see Cad Bane go head to head with Boba Fett and Mando, and see how that all plays out. The episode ends with Luke presenting Grogu with a choice. Take the Mandalorian armor and go back to Mando, or take Yoda's old lightsaber and stay the path of the Jedi Knight. It's a really interesting choice presented to Grogu, and I'm conflicted. I'm conflicted just like Grogu. On one hand, I really want Grogu to go back to Mando. Their pairing is just absolute magic. It makes episodes just incredible. Reminds me of the good old times of Mandalorian Season 1 and 2. And just that, bringing that father-son bond to screen would be fantastic again. It would also remove Grogu from danger. We all know what happens to the Jedi Temple in the future with Ben Solo turning on Luke Skywalker. But on the other hand, I sort of really liked the emotional impact that the Season 2 finale had. It was like a father and son being separated, but for the better. Mando was giving Grogu a better life with the Jedi. And I felt that was a really well-earned emotional break, and I feel like if we just jump straight back to Grogu coming back with Mando, it sort of feels a little bit cheap, a little bit too soon. I want them to spend some time apart, so we'll just have to see how it plays out in the next episode. Speaking of being conflicted, much like last week, I'm conflicted as to whether or not this episode truly does belong in the Book of Boba Fett. We've got a second episode now where our main character doesn't have a single line and is only in it for about 5 seconds. I'm going to reiterate what I said last week in terms of thinking that this show should have been placed under a banner along with The Mandalorian under a greater brand show like Star Wars The Mandalorian. It really doesn't feel like this or the last episode have anything really to do with the Book of Boba Fett. It's more Mando 2.5. And it feels like we're doing a bit of a disservice to Boba Fett the character by not having him feature in his own show. in terms of what happens next, I don't really know, and I'm not sure I really care in terms of what happens to the Boba Fett Pike conflict. It just hasn't been all that engrossing in terms of storytelling. We've barely had any movement on that story. We've barely, apart from the bombing at the sanctuary, which was cool. That was a really cool scene. But apart from that, we really haven't seen anything that makes me want to have that conflict resolved in a satisfying way. I'm more interested in what happens with Mando, what happens with Grogu, what choice does Luke make? Does Luke help out in a way? I'm just not really sold on the Pike conflict as being a satisfying conclusion to the Book of Boba Fett Season 1. We'll have to wait and see what happens next week in the finale. It's going to be directed by Robert Rodriguez. Hopefully it's a long episode and it is fully focused on resolving this issue with the Pikes, or at least... We've got one episode left, the finale next week, directed by Robert Rodriguez. It's going to be interesting to see how he tries to wrap up this storyline or set things up for a season 2. But until then, leave a comment, let me know what you think of episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett and what you think is going to happen in the finale. See ya!
Wait! You forgot your Captuna!